Welcome back to America Coin Value, where we explore fascinating United States coins, their history, varieties, condition, and the surprising prices that collectors may be willing to pay. Top 4. First up today, we are taking a close look at the 1994 Jefferson nickel, a 5-cent coin that many people might overlook because it is relatively modern and was produced in large numbers. But there is an important lesson in coin collecting. A common coin can sometimes become much more interesting when you examine its condition, strike quality, and tiny details. The 1994 Jefferson nickel was struck at the Denver Mint, and the D Mint mark identifies its origin. More than 715 million examples were produced, so an ordinary circulated example is generally not a rare coin. However, exceptionally preserved pieces, especially coins with strong full steps on Monticello, can bring substantially higher prices. Current price guides show ordinary 1994 D nickels ranging from face value in circulated grades to several dollars in uncirculated condition, while exceptional certified examples can reach hundreds or even much more. To understand why this coin attracts collectors, we first need to look at the history of the Jefferson nickel itself. The Jefferson nickel was introduced in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel that had circulated since 1913. The new design featured Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his Virginia home, Monticello, on the reverse. The design was created by sculptor Felix Schlag after he won a national competition. The Jefferson nickel became one of the most recognizable 5-cent coins in American history, and the basic design remained in use for decades. By 1994, the Jefferson nickel had already been part of American commerce for more than half a century, meaning that collectors had developed strong interest in assembling complete date and mint mark collections. The 1994 D, therefore, represents one chapter in a long-running American coin series. The 1994 D Jefferson nickel was made at the Denver Mint, one of the major United States mint facilities responsible for producing circulating coins. The D can be found on the obverse beneath the date area, identifying Denver as the mint of origin. According to published catalog information, the 1994 D issue had a mintage of 715,762,110 coins. That is a very large production figure, and it is one of the main reasons an ordinary 1994 D nickel is not considered rare. In circulated condition, many examples remain worth approximately their 5-cent face value. However, mintage alone does not determine the value of a collectible coin. Millions of coins can be produced, yet only a small percentage may survive in exceptional condition with outstanding surfaces and a strong strike. That is exactly where the 1994 D Jefferson nickel becomes more interesting. Let us now talk about the physical specifications of this 5-cent coin. The 1994 D Jefferson nickel has a diameter of approximately 21.2 millimeters and weighs about 5 grams. Its composition is 75% copper and 25% nickel, which is the standard composition used for circulating Jefferson nickels during this period. This means that the 1994 D nickel is not a silver coin, despite sometimes having a bright, silvery appearance when it is new. The edge is plain rather than reeded. These characteristics are useful when checking a coin, because weight, diameter, composition, and design details can help collectors identify whether a coin is authentic and whether something unusual may have happened to it. On the obverse, you will see the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson facing left. Around the portrait are the inscriptions "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," along with the date 1994 and the Denver D Mint mark. One detail collectors should pay attention to is the overall sharpness of the design. On a heavily circulated coin, the highest points of Jefferson's portrait and surrounding lettering can show noticeable wear. On an uncirculated example, the original mint luster can still be visible, and the design should have much sharper detail. The condition of the fields, Jefferson's hair, cheek, lettering, and other raised areas can all influence how a professional grading service evaluates the coin. The reverse of the 1994 D Jefferson nickel displays Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia residence. Beneath the building are the words "Monticello" and 5 cents, while "EPLURBUSUNUM" and "United States of America" appear around the design. For collectors of Jefferson nickels, the steps of Monticello are especially important. This is because a sharply struck coin can show distinct horizontal steps on the building. Coins that preserve strong, uninterrupted steps can qualify for the full steps, or FS, designation. This small detail can make a tremendous difference in value. A normal 1994 D nickel may be inexpensive, but a high-grade example with exceptionally sharp full steps can move into a completely different collecting category. This full steps feature is one of the most important things to examine if you believe you have an unusually valuable 1994 D nickel. The reason is simple. The steps of Monticello are vulnerable to weakness during the striking process. Even a coin that otherwise looks beautiful may not have enough detail for a full steps designation. Collectors and grading services carefully inspect the steps for interruptions, marks, softness, or missing detail. According to current published pricing information, 1994D full steps examples can be dramatically more valuable than ordinary examples. One current catalog lists approximately $11 for an MS64 full steps coin, about $24 for MS65FS, around $115 for MS66FS, and as much as $1,750 for an MS67FS example. These figures are guide values rather than guaranteed selling prices, and actual market results can vary considerably. So what is the 1994D Jefferson nickel worth today? For an ordinary circulated coin, the answer is usually simple, about 5 cents or face value, assuming there is no unusual error or variety. Published market references show the normal 1994D issue at very modest levels in circulated grades. Once the coin reaches uncirculated condition, however, the value can rise. APMEX's current guide, for example, lists approximately $2 for an uncirculated example, about $7 for MS63, $14 for MS64, $24 for MS65, $119 for MS66, and a much higher guide figure around $1,838 for MS67. These numbers demonstrate why condition matters so much, but they should not be interpreted as a guaranteed price for every coin with the same label. Certified population, eye appeal, strike quality, and current demand can all affect the final selling price. There is also an important distinction between a regular high-grade 1994D nickel and a full steps example. PCGS records an auction result of $380 for a 1994D regular strike Jefferson nickel, graded MS67, with that sale occurring in March 2021. This is a good example of how an extremely high-grade coin can become significantly more valuable, even though the date itself is common. The existence of such auction results does not mean that every 1994D nickel is worth hundreds of dollars. Instead, it shows that condition rarity can be far more important than the number of coins originally produced. A coin that looks ordinary to the average person may be extremely difficult to find in top certified condition. Another major factor is whether the coin has an unusual mint error or significant variety. Collectors should carefully examine a 1994D nickel for obvious abnormalities such as an off-center strike, major die problems, unusual doubling, missing design elements, or other genuine mint-made errors. However, it is extremely important not to mistake ordinary damage for a mint error. Scratches, dents, discoloration, polishing, plating, or damage caused after the coin left the mint generally do not make a coin rare. Before assuming that an unusual-looking 1994D nickel is worth a fortune, collectors should compare it with authenticated examples, and when necessary, seek an opinion from a reputable professional or grading service. The surface condition of the coin is equally important. A 1994D nickel that has been heavily circulated may have scratches, contact marks, dull surfaces, and wear across the portrait and Monticello. Such a coin generally remains close to face value. On the other hand, a coin that has never entered circulation may retain its original mint luster and sharp details. Collectors should avoid cleaning the coin in an attempt to make it look better. Cleaning can leave hairlines, unnatural surfaces, or other damage that may reduce collector appeal. If you discover an especially beautiful example, the safest approach is usually to preserve it in its existing condition rather than attempting to polish or chemically clean it. For someone searching through pocket change, coin jars, old collections, or rolls of nickels, the 1994D can be an interesting coin to examine. Start by confirming the date and the small D mint mark, then inspect both sides under good lighting. Look closely at Jefferson's portrait, the lettering, the fields, and especially the Monticello steps. If the coin appears bright and untouched, examine it for contact marks and signs of circulation. Next, check whether the steps are sharply defined. A combination of high-grade surfaces and strong full steps can make this otherwise common 5-cent coin much more desirable to collectors. Current published guides confirm that the strongest full steps examples occupy a much higher value range than ordinary 1994D nickels. It is also worth remembering that grading is extremely important when discussing expensive modern Jefferson nickels. A coin that appears perfect to the naked eye may receive a lower grade when examined under professional magnification. Professional grading considers factors such as luster, contact marks, strike quality, surface preservation, and overall eye appeal. A tiny mark in an important area can prevent a coin from receiving a top grade. This is why collectors should be cautious when seeing claims online that an ordinary 1994D nickel is automatically worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. High prices generally belong to exceptional certified examples, particularly those in very high grades or with desirable full steps characteristics. The history of the 1994 D. Jefferson nickel is therefore much more interesting than its 5-cent denomination might suggest. It was produced in enormous numbers at the Denver Mint, yet the collecting world continues to search for the finest survivors. This is one of the central ideas behind modern coin collecting. Rarity is not always about how many coins were originally made. Sometimes rarity comes from how few coins survived in an exceptional state of preservation. The 1994 D. Jefferson nickel provides a perfect example because ordinary examples are common, while elite specimens with exceptional grades and strong full steps can command dramatically higher prices. If you have a 1994 D. Jefferson nickel in your collection, do not automatically assume that it is either worthless or extremely rare. Instead, examine it carefully and realistically. A circulated coin may simply be worth its 5-cent face value. A nice uncirculated coin may be worth a few dollars, while high-grade certified examples can be considerably more valuable. Current references place ordinary MS examples and full steps examples into very different price ranges, illustrating how strongly condition and strike quality affect the market. And finally, remember that coin values change with market demand, grade, certification, and actual auction results. A price guide is an estimate, not a promise that every coin will sell for that amount. If you believe you have an exceptional 1994 D. Jefferson nickel, especially one with brilliant original surfaces, an unusually sharp strike, strong full steps, or a genuine mint error, consider having it examined by a qualified numismatist or professional grading service before making any decision about selling it. The most exciting part of collecting is not simply finding a coin that is old, it is discovering the small details that separate an ordinary example from an extraordinary one. So check your nickels carefully, because that little 5-cent Jefferson may have a story worth telling, and in exceptional circumstances, it could be worth far more than 5 cents. Thank you for watching America Coin Value. If you enjoyed this detailed history and value guide to the 1994 D. Jefferson nickel, make sure to subscribe for more videos about rare United States coins, valuable nickels, Jefferson nickels, old coins, mint errors, and coins that collectors are searching for today. Keep checking your change, your coin jars, and your old collections, because you never know when an interesting coin may be waiting to be discovered. Until the next video, happy coin hunting, and remember, every coin has a story, but the rarest details can make that story truly valuable. Next up in today's video, we are taking a close look at the 1980p Jefferson nickel, a 5-cent coin that may look ordinary at first glance but becomes much more interesting when you examine its date, mint mark, condition, strike quality, and especially the famous full steps detail on the reverse. If you have a 1980 Jefferson nickel with a small p mint mark, do not automatically assume that it is worth a fortune. Most examples are common, but exceptionally high-grade specimens can be much more valuable. According to PCGS, the Philadelphia Mint produced 593,004,000 Jefferson nickels in 1980, making this a very common date overall. The Jefferson nickel has an important place in American coin history. The series began in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel, and it was designed by Felix Schlag. The obverse features a portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, while the reverse traditionally displays Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home. The 1980p belongs to the modern copper-nickel era of the series. Unlike the wartime Jefferson nickels produced from 1942 through 1945, the 1980p is not a silver coin. Its composition is 75% copper and 25% nickel. It weighs 5 grams, has a diameter of 21.2 millimeters, and has a plain edge. One of the most interesting details about the 1980p Jefferson nickel is the return of the P mint mark. Philadelphia had historically produced many US coins without a mint mark, but 1980 was an important year because the Philadelphia Mint began placing the P mint mark on regular Jefferson nickels. That means the tiny letter P on a 1980 nickel is an important identifying feature. On the reverse, look near Monticello for the mint mark. If you see a P there, you have the Philadelphia issue. This small letter can help collectors identify exactly where the coin was produced and distinguish it from the 1980D Denver issue and the 1980S proof issue. Now let us talk about the most important question. How much is a 1980p Jefferson nickel worth today? The answer depends heavily on condition. A circulated 1980p nickel is generally worth little more than its 5-cent face value. Collectors can find ordinary circulated examples quite easily, and PCGS describes the date and mint mark as very common. For an ordinary worn example, there is usually no reason to expect hundreds or thousands of dollars. Some market guides show circulated examples around face value, while uncirculated examples can bring a modest premium depending on grade. The situation changes when we move into mint state condition. A coin that has never circulated and still possesses its original mint luster can be worth considerably more than 5 cents. Current market guides give examples in the low mint state grades values of a few dollars, with higher grade coins becoming progressively more desirable. One current guide lists approximate values around $2 for MS61, $5 for MS63, and about $25 for MS65, while other market data gives different figures depending on the marketplace, certification, and exact appearance of the coin. These numbers should be viewed as market indications rather than guaranteed selling prices, because individual coins can perform differently at auction. The really exciting part begins at the very highest grades. The 1980p Jefferson nickel becomes scarce when it reaches MS66 and above, because most coins from this enormous production run were either circulated or did not survive with the exceptional surfaces, strike, luster, and preservation required for top grades. PCGS specifically notes that coins grading MS66 and higher are scarce. This is why a common date coin can still become a serious collector item when an exceptionally preserved example appears. The value is not simply coming from the date, it is coming from the combination of condition and rarity at that condition level. There is another feature that collectors should examine very carefully: full steps, commonly abbreviated FS. On the reverse of the Jefferson nickel, Monticello has a series of steps at the base of the building. On many Jefferson nickels, these steps are weak, incomplete, or interrupted by contact marks and striking problems. A sharply struck coin with the steps clearly separated can receive a full steps designation from professional grading services. For the 1980p issue, full steps examples are considerably more difficult to find in the highest grades. PCGS reports that fewer than 200 examples with full steps are known, with fewer than 50 in MS66 FS and none finer in its cited analysis. This full steps characteristic can dramatically change the potential value. One market guide reports approximately $3 for an MS61 full steps example, around $6 for MS63 FS, and about $42 for MS65 FS, while also reporting an auction record of $375 for an MS65 FS example. PCGS records a separate auction record of $546 for a 1980p Jefferson nickel with full steps graded MS64, sold by Heritage Auctions in 2010. These figures demonstrate why collectors should never judge a 1980p nickel only by its date and mint mark. The strength of the strike and preservation of the reverse can be extremely important. There is also a fascinating high-grade auction record for the regular 1980p issue. PCGS CoinFacts lists an auction record of $5,875 for a 1980p Jefferson nickel graded MS66, sold by Heritage Auctions on August 5, 2014. This is an extraordinary result compared with the normal value of an ordinary circulated 1980p nickel. It is important, however, not to misunderstand this record. It does not mean every 1980p nickel is worth thousands of dollars. Auction records represent specific coins with specific grades, surfaces, strikes, eye appeal, certification, and market circumstances. A normal circulated example remains a common 5-cent coin. So if you have a 1980p Jefferson nickel at home, what should you look for? Start with the date and the P mint mark, then examine the overall condition. Look for original mint luster, minimal scratches, clean surfaces, sharp lettering, and strong details on Jefferson's portrait. On the reverse, carefully inspect Monticello and especially the steps underneath the building. If those steps are sharply separated and complete, your coin deserves additional attention. Remember that a coin can look beautiful to the naked eye and still receive a lower professional grade because grading considers many factors, including marks, wear, luster, strike quality, and surface preservation. You should also be careful with cleaning. Never polish or chemically clean a potentially collectible Jefferson nickel simply because it looks dark or dirty. Cleaning can damage the original surface and may reduce collector appeal. Professional collectors generally prefer coins with natural surfaces and original characteristics. If you believe your 1980p nickel could be an exceptional high-grade or full-step specimen, it may be worth comparing it with professionally graded examples before deciding whether professional certification is appropriate. A certified grade from a respected grading service can make it easier for buyers and collectors to understand exactly what they are purchasing. Another interesting area is errors and varieties. The normal 1980p Jefferson nickel is common, but an authentic mint error can be much more valuable than an ordinary example. Major errors can include unusual planchet problems, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, or other dramatic minting abnormalities. For example, auction records include 1980p Jefferson nickels struck on cent planchets, which are completely different from normal examples and can sell for hundreds of dollars. Coin World records examples of such unusual errors selling for hundreds of dollars, including a reported $381.88 result for an MS-64 example struck on a 1-cent planchet. This is why it is important to separate three different categories when discussing the value of a 1980p Jefferson nickel. The first category is the ordinary circulated coin, which is generally worth around face value. The second category is the attractive uncirculated coin, which can bring several dollars or more depending on grade. The third category is the exceptional coin, such as a very high-grade specimen, a strong full steps example, or a genuine mint error. These special pieces can command substantially higher prices. Calling every 1980p nickel rare would therefore be misleading, because the date itself is common. The rarity comes from exceptional preservation, strike quality, full steps designation, or a genuine mint error. Estimating today's market value, collectors should also remember that prices change. Coin values depend on supply and demand, grading standards, auction competition, certification, appeal, and the specific venue where the coin is sold. An online price guide may show one figure while a major auction produces another. Even two coins carrying the same numerical grade can sell for different amounts because one may have stronger luster, cleaner surfaces, sharper details, or better eye appeal. Therefore, if someone tells you that every 1980p Jefferson nickel is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, be extremely cautious. The available market evidence clearly shows that ordinary examples are common, while exceptional high-grade pieces are the ones that attract serious premiums. The history of the 1980p nickel also makes it an interesting collecting target because it represents a transition in the identification of Philadelphia coinage. The return of the P Mint mark gives collectors an easy way to identify the Philadelphia production, and the enormous mintage means that many examples survived. That combination makes the coin accessible to beginners while still offering a challenge to advanced collectors who want to locate an unusually high-grade full steps example. Searching rolls, old collections, coin jars, and inherited accumulations can sometimes produce attractive specimens, although the odds of finding a truly elite coin are much lower than simply finding the date. So before you spend a large amount of money on a 1980p Jefferson nickel, examine the coin carefully and understand exactly what makes the particular example valuable. If your coin is circulated and shows normal wear, it is probably a 5-cent coin with little additional premium. If it is bright, uncirculated, and exceptionally clean, it could be worth several dollars or more depending on its grade. If it reaches the highest mint state grades, or if the Monticello steps are exceptionally sharp and qualify for full steps, the value can rise dramatically. And if you discover a genuine major mint error, the story can become even more interesting. The difference between an ordinary nickel and a valuable collectible can sometimes be found in details that are only visible under careful examination. Finally, the 1980p Jefferson nickel teaches us one of the most important lessons in coin collecting. Rarity is not always about how old a coin is. A coin made in huge numbers can still become valuable in a particular grade or with a particular characteristic. The 1980p had a mintage of 593,004,000, so the date itself is certainly not scarce. But superb examples, especially those with exceptional strikes and full steps, are much harder to locate. That is what makes this humble 5-cent coin worth examining. So check your collection, inspect the small P Mint mark, study the condition, look closely at Monticello's steps, and never assume that every old-looking nickel has the same value. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to Coinsworth TV for more videos about valuable US coins, Jefferson nickels, rare mint errors, and the fascinating history hidden inside everyday pocket change.